The most dangerous sound in the world isn't a gunshot, a siren, or a scream. It's the soft, almost silent click of a hotel room door locking from the inside. Especially when the woman on the other side of that door is your wife of 10 years, and the man she's locking it with is her boss. The resort manager's hand was visibly shaking as he reached for the computer mouse. His name was Richard, a man who had spent 30 years handling difficult guests. But right now, he couldn't even look me in the eye. "Mr. Harrison," he said, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper, "I need you to understand something. What you're about to see, I'm only showing you because you demanded it. Once you see this, you cannot unsee it." He clicked play. The security footage timestamp read 2:52 p.m. I watched the screen as my wife Claire stepped out of an elevator on the 6th floor, the executive suite level. I watched her look left, look right, her eyes darting like a thief, before she knocked on room 604. I watched the door open. I watched her boss Daniel pull her inside. And then, I watched the manager fast forward the tape. 1 hour. 2 hours. 3 hours. They were still in there. If you want to know exactly what I did when I walked up to room 604, and how the next 48 hours resulted in the absolute, total destruction of their careers and my marriage, hit that subscribe button right now. Because kicking the door down would have been too easy. What I did was much, much worse. My name is Nathan, and this is the anatomy of a betrayal. I am a civil engineer by trade. My entire life revolves around calculating stress loads, predicting structural failures, and building foundations that can withstand worst-case scenarios. I deal in concrete, steel, and absolute truths. If a bridge fails, it's because someone missed a microfracture in the design. I thought I approached my marriage with the same methodical precision. I thought our foundation was bedrock. I was completely, catastrophically wrong. Claire and I met a decade ago. She was a marketing executive, sharp, radiant, unapologetically ambitious. She could walk into a room of strangers and own it within 5 minutes. I was the quiet guy in the corner, nursing a bourbon, analyzing the room. We were opposites, but for a long time, the synergy worked. She climbed the brutal corporate ladder at Meridian Solutions, a high-stakes marketing firm in Denver. I spent my days on dusty construction sites across Colorado. We had different schedules, different worlds, but we had trust. At least, that was the story I told myself. The cracks in the foundation didn't start with an earthquake. They started with a corporate retreat. "It's at this luxury resort up in Vail," she had said one evening, sliding a glossy brochure across the kitchen island. 3 days. Strategy sessions, team building, spouses are invited. Daniel is going to announce the new VP of marketing, Nathan. I really think I have a shot at it. I need you there. Daniel Mercer, her boss. I had met him exactly twice. He was the kind of guy who wore a Rolex Daytona, spoke in corporate buzzwords, and had a smile that never quite reached his eyes. But Claire was practically vibrating with excitement. I checked my project schedule. I had a massive site inspection that week, but I rearranged everything. I wanted to support her. I wanted to be the loyal husband standing by as she achieved her dream. She kissed me that night, whispering how much it meant to her. She had no idea how that weekend would actually change our lives. We arrived in Vail on a crisp Thursday morning. The resort was a cathedral of corporate excess. Vaulted timber ceilings, massive stone fireplaces, and floor-to-ceiling windows looking out over the mountains. The first day was a blur of forced networking. I played the part of the supportive +1 perfectly. I smiled through the cocktail hours, made small talk with other spouses, and watched Claire shine. but it was the second day when the foundation collapsed. After a morning session, Claire found me in the lobby. Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes bright. "Daniel pulled me aside," she whispered, squeezing my arm. "He said he's blown away by my recent campaigns. He said we need to talk privately about the VP role this afternoon. I'll see you at dinner, okay?" She kissed me and hurried off. That was at 1:45 p.m. By 5 p.m. I hadn't heard from her. Not a text, not a call. At first I wasn't worried. Corporate schedules run over. But by 5:30, her phone was going straight to voicemail. I walked to the conference center. It was completely empty. I bumped into Jenna, one of Claire's junior copywriters. "Hey, have you seen Claire?" I asked casually. Jenna frowned. "Claire?" "No, she left the afternoon workshop early, around 2:30. Said she had a migraine." My chest tightened. A cold, heavy stone of dread dropped into my stomach. She wasn't in our room. I checked the spa, the gym, the restaurant, the outdoor fire pits. Nothing. By 6 p.m., the casual worry had morphed into a suffocating panic. We were in a massive, unfamiliar mountain resort. What if she had gone hiking and fallen? What if she had a medical emergency? I practically ran to the front desk. "My wife is missing," I told the young clerk, my voice tight. "Claire Harrison, room 412. I need you to check the grounds." The clerk's eyes widened, and he immediately called for the manager. That's when Richard appeared. He led me into a small, windowless security office behind the reception. He closed the door carefully, shutting out the ambient noise of the lobby. The silence in that room was deafening. "Mr. Harrison," Richard began, his tone far too gentle. "Before we initiate a formal search, I have to ask, are you aware of any issues in your marriage?" The question felt like a physical blow. "What the hell does that mean?" I snapped. "My wife is missing. Why are you asking me about my marriage?" Richard didn't argue. He just turned to the bank of monitors. "We have cameras covering all public areas, hallways and elevators. If you are certain you want to know where she is, I can show you." "Show me," I demanded. He typed on his keyboard. The center screen flickered to life. The timestamp read 2:47 p.m. It was a camera facing the main elevator bank. There was Claire. She didn't look sick. She didn't have a migraine. She looked hyper-alert. She glanced over her shoulder, a nervous, guilty habit I had never seen before. She stepped into the elevator. "She didn't press the button for the 4th floor, Mr. Harrison," Richard said quietly. The camera switched to the interior of the elevator. Claire reached out and pressed 6, the executive suites. The screen cut to the 6th floor hallway. Timestamp 2:52 p.m. She walked down the long, opulent corridor. She stopped at room 604. She raised her hand and knocked. 3 seconds later, the door swung open. Daniel Mercer stood there. He had taken his suit jacket off. His tie was loosened. He looked her up and down, a predatory smirk on his face. Claire smiled. A deeply intimate, knowing smile. She stepped inside. The heavy wooden door clicked shut. I stopped breathing. The air in the security office felt suffocatingly thin. "Is she..." I choked on the words. "Is she still in there?" Richard looked at the live feed for the 6th floor. He nodded slowly. "Mr. Harrison, that was over 3 hours ago. No one has left that room." 3 hours, 180 minutes, 10,800 seconds. Every single second, a betrayal. Every tick of the clock, a knife twisting in my back. I stared at the frozen image of that closed door. In that windowless office, the man I used to be, the trusting, supportive husband, died, and someone entirely different took his place. "What is the room number?" I asked. My voice didn't even sound like my own. It was completely hollow, dead. "Mr. Harrison, please, I strongly advise against." "What is the room number?" 604, he whispered. I walked out of that office and crossed the lobby. I didn't run. I didn't storm. I walked with the slow, terrifying precision of a man walking to an execution. The elevator ride to the 6th floor took an eternity. The ping of the doors opening sounded like a judge's gavel. The 6th floor was dead silent. The thick, plush carpet absorbed the sound of my footsteps. I stood in front of room 604. For 10 seconds, I did absolutely nothing. I just listened. Through the heavy wood, I could hear the faint, muffled sound of a television, and underneath it, a soft laugh. Her laugh. I raised my fist and pounded on the door. Not a polite knock. I hit it hard enough to rattle the frame. The laughter instantly stopped. The silence that followed was heavy, panicked. I heard hurried footsteps, the rustle of fabric. A full minute passed. I hit the door again. "Claire," I said loudly, "open the damn door." The lock clicked. The door opened a few inches, stopped by the chain guard. Daniel Mercer's face appeared in the gap. He was pale, his hair disheveled, his dress shirt untucked and misbuttoned. The arrogance from the lobby was entirely gone, replaced by the sheer terror of a cornered animal. "Nathan," he stammered, his eyes darting wildly. "Listen, man, this isn't what it looks like. We were just—" I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I looked him dead in the eye, my voice dropping to a terrifying calm. "Take the chain off the door, Daniel, or I will kick it off its hinges and break your jaw in front of everyone on this floor." He swallowed hard. His trembling hand reached up and slid the chain free. He stepped back. I pushed the door open and walked in. The room smelled of expensive cologne, wine, and sex. The king-size bed was completely destroyed, sheets tangled and pillows thrown on the floor. And sitting in the corner armchair, clutching a hotel robe around her, was my wife. Her makeup was smeared. Her hair was a mess. She looked at me with wide, terrified eyes, like a deer caught in the headlights of a speeding truck. "Nathan," she whimpered, tears instantly spilling down her cheeks. "Please, let me explain." I stood in the center of the room, looking at the two of them. The sheer, pathetic nature of the scene was overwhelming. "Explain what, Claire?" I asked, my tone conversational. "Explain how your migraine magically relocated you to your boss's bed for 3 hours?" Daniel tried to step forward, holding his hands up defensively. "Nathan, be reasonable. We were discussing her promotion. Things got out of hand. It was a mistake." A momentary lapse in judgment. I turned my head slowly to look at him. "A momentary lapse?" I looked back at Claire. "Is that what this is, Claire? A moment?" She was sobbing now, burying her face in her hands. She couldn't speak. She just shook her head. "How long?" I demanded, my voice finally cracking like thunder in the room. "How long?" She flinched as if I had struck her. She looked up, her face twisted in shame. Six months, she choked down. 6 months. Half a year. While I was working late to pay for our mortgage. While we were making plans for the holidays. While she was kissing me goodnight. She had been crawling into his bed. The rage inside me was a physical entity. It screamed at me to grab Daniel by his throat and throw him through the glass balcony doors. It screamed at me to tear the room apart. My hands balled into fists so tight my knuckles turned white. But then, the engineer in me took over. Emotion is chaos. Logic is power. Violence would put me in a police car, and it would make them the victims. I refused to let them be victims. "Pack your bags," I said to Claire, my voice dropping back to absolute zero. "I will be waiting in the lobby in exactly 20 minutes. If you aren't there, you can find your own way back to Denver." I turned my back on them and walked out of the room. I let the door click shut behind me. I stood in the hallway, took a deep breath, and reached into my pocket. I pulled out my phone. I opened the voice recorder app and hit record. I turned around, walked back to room 604, and knocked again. Daniel opened the door, looking bewildered. "What now?" he snapped, his fear giving way to annoyance. "I need to hear you say it," I said, holding the phone casually at my side. "Say what?" he asked. "Say that you've been sleeping with my wife for 6 months. Say that you, a senior executive, have been having an affair with your subordinate." He scoffed. "I'm not saying anything to you." I leaned in, just inches from his face. "You will say it. Or I walk downstairs right now, grab the microphone at the gala dinner, and announce to the entire company, the CEO, and every client in the room exactly what you've been doing. I will burn your reputation to the ground in public. Your choice, Daniel." He stared at me, realizing I had absolutely nothing left to lose. His jaw clenched. "Fine," he hissed. "Yes, we've been sleeping together. For 6 months. Are you happy now?" "Ecstatic," I whispered. I stopped the recording, put the phone in my pocket, and walked away. The trap was set. The drive back to Denver was a tomb of silence. Claire sat in the passenger seat, crying softly for the first hour, trying to apologize, trying to beg. I never looked at her. I never said a single word. When we pulled into our driveway, I kept the engine running. "Get your things," I said. "I'm going to a hotel. I'll contact a lawyer on Monday. Do not call me. Do not text me. We are done." The next morning, the real work began. I didn't wallow. I didn't drink. I executed a blueprint. At 9 a.m. on Monday, I received a phone call from an unknown number. "Mr. Harrison? My name is Amanda Cross. I am Chief Legal Counsel for Meridian Solutions. We have been made aware of an incident at the Vail Retreat involving your wife and Mr. Mercer. We would like to invite you in for a confidential meeting." They were terrified. Corporate liability, sexual harassment protocols, power dynamics in the workplace. It was a legal minefield, and they knew I held the detonator. "I'll be there in an hour," I said. I walked into the massive glass conference room at Meridian Solutions. Amanda Cross sat at the head of the table, flanked by HR directors. They tried to handle me with kid gloves. They asked probing questions, trying to ascertain if Claire had been coerced, trying to figure out if I was going to sue the company. "Mr. Harrison," Amanda said carefully, "we take allegations of inappropriate conduct between executives and subordinates very seriously. But we need concrete proof before we can take action." I didn't say a word. I pulled my phone from my pocket, set it in the middle of the mahogany table, and hit play. Daniel's arrogant, frustrated voice filled the room, clearly admitting to a 6-month affair with his subordinate. The color drained from Amanda Cross's face. The HR director closed her eyes and sighed. It was the ultimate smoking gun. "What do you want, Mr. Harrison?" Amanda asked quietly. "I want justice," I said coldly. Daniel Mercer used his position of power to compromise an employee. If he is still employed by this firm by Friday, I am releasing this recording to the press, and I am filing a lawsuit against Meridian Solutions for fostering a toxic work environment. 2 days later, Daniel Mercer was unceremoniously fired, terminated with extreme prejudice, losing his unvested stock options, his severance, and his reputation. The industry was small. Word traveled fast. He was effectively blacklisted. Claire didn't fare much better. Because she had actively participated in the deception, HR placed her on indefinite unpaid leave pending a full investigation. The VP role she had sold her soul for was given to someone else. Her career trajectory shattered against a brick wall. But I wasn't done. When it came time for the divorce, my lawyer laid out the reality. Colorado is a no-fault state, Nathan. Infidelity doesn't matter when dividing assets. It does when you have leverage, I replied. I had my lawyer draft a settlement. A clean, brutal split. I kept my retirement, my investments, and the truck. We sold the house and split the equity. I explicitly denied any spousal support, despite the fact that she was now unemployed. When Claire's lawyer tried to push back, I sent a simple message. Sign the papers, or I subpoena Daniel Mercer and the HR records from Meridian, and make the details of this affair a matter of permanent public court record. She signed the papers the next day. No trial, no alimony, no mercy. 6 months later, the dust had settled. I was living in a quiet condo in Boulder, pouring myself into my work. I was healing, brick by brick. That's when my phone buzzed with a LinkedIn notification. It was a message from a woman named Rachel, Daniel Mercer's now ex-wife. Nathan, you don't know me, but I think we are the only two people in the world who understand what happened. Can I buy you a coffee? We met at a quiet cafe downtown. Rachel was elegant, exhausted, and carrying the same invisible scar as I was. We sat across from each other, two collateral damages of someone else's selfishness. She told me Daniel had come home from Vail and confessed, trying to control the narrative before he got fired. She had kicked him out that same night. I guess I just wanted to see you, Rachel said, stirring her coffee. I wanted to know if you survived it. I survived, I told her, managing a small, genuine smile. I'm still standing. We became friends. Not a trauma bond, not a rebound romance. Just two people who knew the exact weight of absolute betrayal. We talked, we shared stories, and slowly, over months, the bitterness began to fade. A year after the divorce, Rachel called me. I'm booking a trip to Italy, she announced. Florence, Rome, the Amalfi Coast. I need to get out of this country. You should come. I hesitated for exactly 3 seconds. Book me a ticket. Sitting on a balcony overlooking the Mediterranean Sea, holding a glass of wine, I listened to Rachel laugh at a terrible joke I made. And in that moment, the final piece of the architecture clicked into place. I realized that the greatest victory wasn't getting Daniel fired. It wasn't dominating the divorce settlement. The greatest victory was that they hadn't destroyed my capacity to trust, to laugh, and to live. Claire and Daniel were currently navigating ruined careers, shattered reputations, and a relationship built on a foundation of lies. I, on the other hand, was drinking Chianti in Italy with an incredible woman, completely free. The truth is, revenge is loud. It's screaming matches in hallways. It's breaking things. It's chaos. But true power? True power is silent. It's a calculated exit. It's letting their own toxic choices destroy them while you walk away with your dignity intact. If you are watching this, and you are standing in the wreckage of a betrayal, if you are staring at a closed door and wondering how you will ever survive the pain, Listen to me. Do not let them turn you into a monster. Choose logic. Choose silence. Choose your dignity. Drop a comment below and type, "I choose dignity," if you refuse to let betrayal define your life. And if this story resonated with you, hit subscribe. We have a lot more to talk about. Because sometimes, the best revenge is simply a life well lived.